Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist. I own 52 units of real estate, and I help coach people to buy their first multifamily deal. So I kind of want to give updates on my mobile home park, which is crazy. And I want to give an update on the 50-unit apartment complex that I've been kind of eyeing, just to kind of keep you along the story. So let's first talk about my mobile home park. So it was crazy. I was looking on my Chase bank account, my business bank account for my holding company, and I noticed that I didn't get my monthly note payment for my mobile home park where I'm doing a second note position. And I was like, huh, I thought this was auto pay. So I texted my old property manager, CCI, who was managing the park, and they took over for the new owner. So they basically managed the owner before me, the first owner. They managed me, the second owner, and they helped manage the third owner, who was a group of people who bought the property. So I texted the property manager, and then I didn't get a response from her. But all of a sudden, like someone else out of the blue just called me. I thought it was spam, so I ignored it. And then I got a text message saying, "Hey, um, I'm part of the new ownership, and I've been trying to get your contact information for a while." And I was just like, "Okay, hey, like here's my email. Let me know what's up." So like texting me saying, "Yeah, the CCI, they were terminated, they were fired, like it was wild." And I'm like, "Hey, dude," and she was kind of like, "Do you want to talk about this?" And I was just like, "Okay, sure." So stepped outside and called, and she was just like, "Oh my god, like I found your contact information through North Point Commercial, which was the lender I used to purchase my two new mobile homes that I rented out, and because I had my contact information on there, and then their contact information was on there as well. So from there, I had my number. So like she just texted me out of the blue, but I thought CCI gave them my number. But anyways, gave them. She texted me and she was just like, "Oh yeah, do you want to talk about CCI?" So basically, I called her and I was just like, "Oh hey." She was like, "Yeah, I've been trying to find you since like November. CCI never gave me your contact information. They never gave me your email. They never gave me your number. We terminated them because they weren't managing the park right." And like basically she was just like, I saw your YouTube video and you're talking about them, and you're like, "Oh my god," it just sounded like you were describing my exact experience. So to kind of recap that video, CCI, they manage about 70 mobile home parks, I think, across California. They own some themselves, and it's a family business. And they manage the park for the first owner who I bought it from, right? Seller finance. And basically, the park had a lot of issues, right? You know, the fast version of it is, CCI, they were the third party property manager, and they were incompetent. Like all they're good at was paying bills. And they never even looked at what bills they paid, apparently. And they just paid it, right? They saw a water bill, they'll pay it. If they see an electric bill, they'll pay it. But that bill may not even be applicable to me, right? Because it's a huge park, it's 55 acres. And and then we had an on-site property manager as a husband and wife, and they weren't good at collecting rents, right? And the whole point of a property manager is like collect rents, and they couldn't do that. The main guy, he was too soft, or maybe he was pocketing the money, which I found out he probably was pocketing some of the money. And then the wife was a little bit more hard, but like I said, I think they were definitely cheating and pocketing some money. After I found out, after talking to the third owner. So it was bad property management. It was bad offsite property management at CCI, and then it was just too high crime of an area, and had a bad reputation. So, after talking to, so when I sold it, I had to carry. There's still the first note from the first owner. I'm the second note, and then like now, my joke was always like, "Oh, the third owner's being a third note if the park doesn't do well." So apparently, what happened was the third owner, because they have more a team, they have bigger people. One of them flew out to the park and basically said, "Hey, like they fired, I guess CCI because they're incompetent, right? They don't know what they're doing. They run old school business and they give a lot of excuses. They don't respond timely. They always have like health issues. They ignore your phone calls. Like basically just red flags of like a bad asset manager, right? Like not someone you trust with your asset, right? And I was foolish enough to do it because I have a caring heart, right? If someone has a health issue, I'm gonna believe it. But if it happens all the time and all the time, all the time, because the next owner heard the same story. But basically they weren't good at managing the park, and so they fired CCI, fired the husband and wife duo, and then flew there, hired another property manager, flew there to trust but verify, stepped on, and then the owner came and pretended, hey, I'm a tenant, I'm looking to rent a unit, and then the property manager was like, oh, like there's it's gonna take me like 3 hours to get there. I live an hour and a half away. And then and she's like, oh, well, I thought there were like 3 rent ready. And he's like, no, there's not. And then all of a sudden the review came like, oh, I'm the owner. Like, can I come see you right now? And then that person said no. And then basically, obviously, person's fired at that spot. And then they ended up getting another property manager who was the security guard at my place at the time. And, he was better at collecting rents. But, quick story short, basically, you know, found out that there's a lot of like mismanagement and money. So like obviously the husband and wife duo, they got a petty cash fund, which probably means that they were pocketing that money and doing whatever they want. The renovations were really shitty. So like apparently, I'd give them money to buy materials. They were just taking materials from like other broken down mobile homes instead of buying it and then pocketing that money. CCI was probably upcharging the renovation and any repair costs because you can charge like a little upcharge on that. It's like, oh, it costs like, if it really costs 2,000, they might charge like 25 or 3,000, a little upcharge fee on top of that. So basically the property manager was stealing money. The offsite property manager was probably upcharging things. And then, we had a lot of like hourly workers who were contractors. And now I'm even doubting like were they actually these workers or were they pretending to work and they just were pocketing the money, right? Like were they just pocketing the money and then pretending to work? Could have been. I wouldn't be surprised. So apparently renovations were supposed to be done, but they weren't. Apparently there were workers there, but I don't even know. And I don't even know now. They told me that like that one of the husband and wife like got injured, but is that even true? It might be a lie too, right? So, anyways, I probably lost, if they were truly stealing and upcharging me, I would say at least 50 to maybe $100,000 in losses easily, right? Because when there's so many expenses, it's hard to get that. It's hard to keep track, right? To be honest, like I spent probably like $500,000 on this, 600,000 on this deal, and I got back $500,000 back, and the 100,000 was probably them siphoning it, right? Because I paid them a consulting fee, and then plus whatever money they were upcharging me about telling me, and then whatever money the property manager was stealing from me. Obviously I didn't know, but it was happening to the third owner. It probably happened to the first owner, right? So, that's why you say you got to trust but verify. And the mobile park business is hard, right? Like it's very archaic. There's no auto pay. You can't set up a payment portal to pay online. They claim the property managers didn't know how to use computers and phones, and they claim the tenants didn't know how to use it. I didn't know that was an excuse just to like funnel the money, right? But this is the classic bad property manager story where they're stealing money, they're upcharging contracting fees, and that's just the cost of doing business, right? Like I'm pretty sure maybe my property managers are doing that for my 26 unit, my 20 unit, but maybe not as obvious versus the mobile home park, right? But at least my 26 unit, my 20 unit, the math checks out more, right? That's why you have to trust but verify. And like you said, it's hard when you're managing out of state. They know that, and they might cheat you, right? That's just the cost of doing real estate, the cost of doing business. But it was crazy to hear that. I'm like, oh my God, the same treatment. Like that's why when you buy a new property, you got to fire all the property management, because what happened was when I bought the property, the on-site property manager and the off-site property managers were both blaming the last owner. And then I thought when they sold to the third owner, they're blaming me. They're like, oh, Steven sucked. That's why the property's not doing well. He didn't want to evict anyone. And I asked her, were they talking bad about me? And she was like, yeah. They're saying that, oh, you weren't a great owner. And I was like, yeah, that's what they told me about the next owner. So it's just kind of like this like snake oil salesman tactic, right? And because they want CCI, they make money when they sell the property. So when I bought it, I paid them $100,000. And when they bought it, they paid them $50,000. Every time they manage a park poorly, they sell the park, they manage the park poorly, and then they sell it to someone else, and they want to keep everything under control, right? Like they're paying bills, but they weren't checking like, is this actually our water bill? I remember like I'd get like a $5,000 trash bill all of a sudden, and I'm like, where's this coming from, right? Like where's this bill coming from? Like, is it coming from another park, and they're just using it to pay the money? Like I have no idea, right? So didn't realize that business can be that crooked. I mean, it's a family business and they own a lot of parks, but like I guess they're mismanaging 70 parks, or I don't know, right? Like I really don't know. And I don't like talking bad about people, but like I hope they have right intentions, but like the way they're running their business is very crooked. Like if you just do good work and you know, like I said, all the red flags were there. So like after a year, I wanted to sell my park because they were bad, they were incompetent, and then the next owner after a year they want to sell it, and they're actually selling it, um, with a normal brokerage. So I hope they sell it right, and so that the loan holders get their money back, and then it's good. But yeah, it's crazy. Like they were, she was saying that the the husband and wife property managers, they were drug addicts. He said that if you look at the renovations of the mobile homes that were done, they look like a crackhead did it. They were definitely stealing money. I remember they said, "Oh, Steven, like we got like cheap vanities and bathtubs for like two. Do you want to buy it for $2,000?" And they probably used my money to go buy it to sell it back to me. You know what I mean? So like they made $2,000 on that, and they weren't managing the park properly. Apparently, they were giving tenants like discounts to like just shut up and not complain. And apparently had a bad reputation when you talk to like Section 8. They're like, oh yeah, this park is like no one wants to go there, and it was a property manager. So like what I should have done was when I took over the park, the two husband and wife, they're on their best behavior. I should have just fired them, and then I should have got someone new. But then CCI was so confident that, oh, this person Tommy was great, but I guess they're all in it together, right? So that's the hard part about mobile home parks. It's run very archaic. It's run very like in the 60s, no technology. It's a hard business, a lot of money. It's easy to get cheated, right? Versus apartments, like it's kind of hard to cheat me, or harder if like money's going to an escrow account and I get distributed the money. So, like I said, it's a cost of doing business. And after hearing her story, she was just like, "Oh my god, yeah, we had to fire them. Get new." They fired like two property managers. They're on their third, and now they're just trying to sell the asset and then just move on from this, right? Like, and the new owners said they saw potential too, right? Like they saw the potential in the park. It just needs to be run right, and then needs to be a lot of capital. But yeah, it was crazy just to see that. And the moment they decide not to use CCI to sell, like their attitude changed completely, because now that's how they make their money, right? They make their $50,000, $100,000 every time they sell a home, and they don't manage it well, and then they get paid to manage it poorly, and then they just move on to the next one, right? So that's how they make their money. And just to me, I'm like, just be good at your job, and that's how you make your money, right? And then like it's funny because one of the owners in the other park, um, he owns like three or four parks with them, and now he's like selling all his parks because he's like, oh my god, if they're cheating me on this one, they must be cheating me on all the other ones too. So decided to sell all his parks too. So this is kind of validating why like I don't want to do mobile parks ever again, right? Like it's just not for me. I'd rather buy new construction in Huntsville, Alabama, or like apartments in Oklahoma, where I already have unfair advantage, where I have a team in place, where yes, you could cheat me, but it's gonna be hard to cheat me, right? Um, so yeah, like you said, but I bake it in. Like maybe there's a property manager special where they say, hey, you know, there's an expensive 2,000, but nothing was done, and they just could like show you a receipt, and then they just can like literally return it and pocket the cash, right? So like that's just the cost of doing business. So once you have a really good property manager who has high integrity, treat them like gold. So that's what I've been doing for my 20 unit and my 26 unit property managers, unless I find out that they're cheating me. But to my knowledge, everything checks out. They're responsive. They do well. So yeah, it's interesting. So like now I know, like that's why when you buy a property, you always bring in another property manager. You never keep the existing one. Never, never. So that's a lesson learned there. And like I said, my gut is I wanted to fire CCI after like a year, but I was trapped because it's hard to find another property management option, and they leave an iron curtain around the asset that you don't really know much about it. So, and I was meeting with them like once a week, and like still they just like talked to me, said all the right things, but their actions did not align with their words. So I should have known back then that they were, liars and snake oil salesmen, because like actions speak louder than words. I remember telling them that like actions speak louder than words, so please have your actions reflect your words. And after that, like, trust was broken. And like I said, I'm glad I only lost 100,000 on this deal, and I move on. Had a nice tax write off, got back $30,000, 40,000, so $60,000 lesson, and basically never deviate from the asset class that I own already, right? Like, so it's a lesson learned. It's a real life MBA. And yeah, mobile park business is hard. It's not for everyone. It's not for me, right? So, but if I were to go back, maybe an RV park, but it'd be to a higher demographic of people. I don't want to be dealing with like your C minus class tenants, D tenants, where they're at poverty, they are minimum wage, and they're tougher to deal with. Like, you can make a lot of money in that asset class, but like, I don't want to deal with the headache. I don't want to deal with that. That's not my cup of tea. So you gotta just know what you like, know what you want, know what you're willing to deal with, right? I'm okay with workforce housing, right? People who work, maybe they don't make the most, but like just like C class, C plus tenants, not the C minus or D, tenants. So quite interesting on that update. So for my 50 unit, I had a new update. So this capital firm that's selling it, it's actually been refreshing working with them, because they're actually helping me structure the deal, helping me structure the financing, and they think more creatively like an investor, right? Which is different than most brokers. So basically, they reached out to the current lender who finances property. It's a Fannie Mae product. So they actually value this property at $2.5 million, which is what the owner wants the price at. I don't think I'm going to offer that, but they want 30% down. So that's about $800,000 down if you include all the costs. The loan's going to be about $1.8 million, fixed for 10 years. It's interest only for the first 3 years. There's a 9.5 year yield maintenance for the prepayment penalty, which means that you have to basically hold onto the loan for 9.5 years before you're allowed to refinance it or sell it. And if you do, you're gonna have to pay the difference of what interest they're owed over that life of the loan. So it's a big prepayment penalty. The interest rate's about 6.2%, or actually it was upper fives. It was like 5.99, which was really surprising to me. I was like, wow, interest rates for multifamily at 5.99, that's pretty good, right? And they required a debt service coverage ratio of 1.3. And they calculated, if you kind of minus some stuff from the net operating income, so they cut the wages in half, assuming that I would get rid of remember, this property has a full-time property manager and a full-time handyman, and they think that I could basically trim costs by getting rid of the full-time handyman and just paying him as needed. And then consolidating on my property management, assuming they're approved, and I can negotiate. If I have 70 units under one property management, I can negotiate a lower rate because I have a bulk discount. So basically, they thought I could probably trim about 50,000 off wages, basically another 10,000 from like legal fees, and then another, I think, I forgot. I ended up being like 60 total, but whatever it was, like the NOI was like 70K, and they basically thought that after trimming some expenses with private management, they assumed the expense ratio is about 60%. So basically, I think this thing was about 410K was the gross income. It came out to be about 34,000 in like monthly income on average, and then the expense is 60%. So what's that? Quick math. So 50% is going to be about, let's say, 17K, plus another 10% of 30. So let's just call it 20K. 20K in expense. So I basically have 13,000 $33,000 in income, $20,000 in expense. So I have a $13,000 NOI, and the monthly loan cost was around $11,000, or like around a little bit under that, like maybe 10,000 to 11,000. So if you do the math, you take the NOI of 13,000, and then you divide that by the monthly debt payment of, I think it was like 10,000. I think, yeah, it's about 10,000. That's about 1.3, right? So the math checks out, but you have to like lower all these expenses. Um, so so yeah, I was just like, oh my god, they never structured the financing that well for me, and I was like, wow, the debt service can hit that, but they require 30% down. So, and then they don't allow me to do a seller carry second on this. So they export that option. So I just said, wow. So I was surprised for two reasons. Number one, I was like, well, interest rate was below 6%, which was amazing. It was a little bit below 6. Number two is that they just teased out so many of these expenses of wages. They thought I'm gonna get rid of the handyman. They thought I'm gonna consolidate property management, cut costs there. My management fee goes down, maybe my capex goes down. But that may not be the case, because I saw the annual inspection for Section 8, and oh my god, dude, they had like pages and pages of repairs, every little thing. So it's strict. That's why I could see the expenses were high, because the little thing like, oh, this thing is damaged, this thing is there's a hole here, you have to repair that, and it just adds up, right? So but they assumed the 60% expense ratio, which is pretty conservative, and then so the numbers worked out, right? Like the numbers worked out. 2.5 million, 30% down, 6% interest rate, DSCSR 1.3 after trimming some expenses. Obviously if I were to offer, I'd offer less than 2.5. But I just asked them, like, okay, this has a DS, so they calculated DSCSR of like 1.45, which is above the minimum 1.3. So I think they trimmed some more expenses that I might have missed. So when I said that, I just said, hey, like, so I have a couple options to take down this deal, right? So I could either 1031 exchange your property, one of my single family homes, and use that as a down payment, right? So basically, I could sell my Livermore property, which has about 800K of equity, and I get $4,000 a month in rent. 1031 exchange that and be able to get $33,000 a month in rent. So it's almost more than 8x my income, right? So in all effective means, that's a good decision, right? From that, because I get more gross income, and then how the math, I would cash flow $3,000 to $4,000 a month, but realistically, it's probably just for reserves on that deal. So I just said, okay, well, that's what option A. Option B is I could raise money and give up equity in the deal, right? So I could have a partner bring in the capital. I'll do all the management, and then we could split the deal 50-50 as an example. Another option is I could, and I asked them for this, like, can I get a second lien position on one of my high equity single family homes, or my high equity 26 unit apartment complex, and to get a commercial line of credit against it, right? And then the SAB Capital, they're like, huh, interesting. Like, we might know a couple of lenders that might bite. I mean, commercial line of credits are harder to come by because it's risky. No one wants to be in second lien position. And he said that the interest rate would probably be about like maybe 9 to 10%. So I think interest rates are kind of trending down a little bit right now. But he was saying about 9 to 10%, or 8 to 9%. And he was just like, well, hey, if I could pull out $300,000 equity at 8 to 9%, that might be half my down payment, and the rest I could get from raising money, or I could 1031 exchange a property, right, to make this deal happen. So, that was kind of eye-opening for me, doing that. So, I was just like, wow, let me make this offer, and let's see if this makes sense, right? So I'm writing the numbers, and I'm trying to see what it is. So, I'll keep you guys posted. If you want to learn how to buy multifamily real estate with some one-on-one mentorship and coaching, check the link down below. Otherwise, let me know what questions you have. Hopefully you like my updates. Let me know what questions you have. Hope to see you in a new one. And please like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much.